So this is exactly the same sort of situation as we had with the 3-coat ceiling, which is the same job. Fortunately, this Artex up here isn't quite as heavy as the other side. We did 3 coats of multi-finish over it. But yeah, we're back to the same sort of thing. Ideally, you're not looking to paint the walls or anything, so we're going to keep them clean. And there's lots of furniture because there's a logistic issue with where things can go. So look, we've got exposed bits of carpet and stuff. This plastic's great, but it's so light and fluffy, you know, as soon as you open the door or something, it blows around all over the place. So it's a small ceiling. What you can see here is downlight's been put in. Electricians cut a massive great big chunk out on this one. They've kept the plasterboard. Yeah, massive chunk out so that they can get their wires into these downlights here. And that's the whole idea of what's been going on here. So that this is why it needs plastering again. But yeah, lots of things to get over in here. Not a great deal of work, but it's important to be as clean as we possibly can in here. So the customer and builder here have covered up the majority of this stuff in here, so I'm just coming in here now. This is what I knew this was going to happen, but yeah, so I am kind of mentally prepared for it. But one thing I do like to carry, and I quite often, on skips and stuff when I'm on jobs, quite often I see old curtains or something like that in the skip, and I'll have them out and start using them as dust sheets. Now this is an old shower curtain, although it's quite fabricy, and these are old curtains that I've picked up from somewhere. So when you are faced with a job which is as complicated as this, whereas covering up is concerned, you get all these little nooks and crannies where the dust sheets, you got the massive great big dust sheet and then it's all buckled up, you start tripping over it. So these tiny little curtains and stuff are ideal for getting into little tricky areas, such as this one down here. That's all completely exposed and you can't get his dust sheet down there. So yeah, I do find little dust sheets quite handy for situations like this. Another option, oh look, let's see what's going on down here. So we got to be really neat up against this coving. Having loads of gear on your trail, trying to get it up and putting it neat in there, that's a good opportunity to be able to drop some down the back of areas. Same here, look. None of that's going to be covered up down there. We could quite easily drop a big lump of plaster and it'll go down the back of the furniture. That's what makes life quite tricky when you've got loads of furniture in a room like this. So yeah, it just is what it is. On this bit back here, because we've got this plastic look, and this, what I'm going to do is get some tape. I'm going to tape it to there. I don't want to tape it to the wall just in case it pulls some paint off, and I'm going to tape it to these windows, which will be able to take it, you know. And just walking out, look, just little corners like that need covering up. Because you can bet your bottom dollar when you do drop a little bit, it will go somewhere that's uncovered. There we go, we're taped up there much better, look. Right, we need to get a primer over this ceiling. I think I might go outside to Van and talk to you about it. Okay, so this video is going to be pretty much an exact replication of one we just done towards the end of last week. I can't remember exactly when. It's Monday morning. You know, I still struggle to get my work brain going. Yeah, it's Monday morning. Had quite a relaxing weekend. Had to go out for drinks on Saturday night for an 18th birthday party. Other than that, yeah, pretty much chilled. So let's talk about bonding agents. I very often use PVA. There's PVA, polyvinyl acetate. There's SBR, styrene butane polymer resin. Easy for you to say, especially on a Monday morning. And you can get like grits as well. Now in this particular case, quite often I'm using PVA, but in this particular case I'm going to use PVA. Definitely, I'd say it's the best choice. The ceiling's already painted, so there's no suction there, so the reason we need to prime it is to actually physically glue the plaster to that painted surface to ensure we get a good adhesion, yeah? So, because PVA tends to be a little bit thicker and you water it down, you can control the viscosity of it. So we're going to mix it up a little bit thick to try and reduce the amount of drips that are coming off it. And because obviously that ceiling has already been painted and there's no suction on it, we can get away with going a little bit thicker, and it's probably advantageous to do that. If it was a very porous and dry surface that we're going onto, you'll do well to knock up your PVA a little bit thinner so it doesn't create a skin on top and actually gets drawn into the body of the surface that you're trying to plaster. So SBR and PVA do pretty much the same thing, but SBR is much more strong, it's much more aggressive, and in its neat state it's very thin, so it's so easy to drip it around the place. And in somewhere like that, you don't want to drip stuff all around the place. And SBR, if you get it where you don't want it to be, it will stay there. It sticks to everything. PVA, it can come back with water. It re-emulsifies is the word they use. So if you do get PVA somewhere, you can kind of soak it out or wash it off with a little bit of elbow grease. So in here, ideally, in the interest of keeping things clean and neat and be able to control the liquid that we're putting on there, then yeah, PVA is definitely the one. Grits, again, they come in different, they tend to be quite thick, and they tend to be coloured as well. And you know, the last thing you want to do is get some grit down the wall, get some grit again on the carpet, because that is on there again. It's very nasty stuff to get somewhere where you don't want it to be. So neat, tidy PVA is the way. I'm going to get your likeness on it as well, Pete. I thought I'd just nip in here because this is the video we did the other day of the 3-coat ceiling that we did. I want to show you just before it got painted and how it looks when it's all dried out. But Pete's on it straight away. Look, before I can get in here, he's got half the thing painted already. So yeah, maybe I'll come in at the end of the day and have a look. You're going to get this all fully finished today?
Yeah.
We'll have a look a little bit later. Okay, back in here, and before we do anything else, we are going to get some scrim over these joints. Okay, scrims up before we PVA, because if we PVA'd it before we put the scrims up, we'd have to wait for that PVA to dry before the scrims will stick to it. So by putting the scrims up beforehand, obviously we eliminate that problem, and we also help, you know, we PVA the scrim to the ceiling as well, so it's you know, doubly stuck up there. Okay, when you are prepping up, like I always say, you start learning the room, and I was expecting this anyway, so it's exactly the same sort of scenario as we had in the other. So now I've put this straight line of scrim up there. You can see it snaking around and curling around. That's the bends in the ceiling, and it's one of the reasons we put 3 coats of plaster on the other ceiling. So I'm going to be using my 20x5 carbon steel trowel because it straightens a lot of things up like this, but it does make you use a little bit more plaster to get you out there, buddy. You're not going to want to be up there for much longer. Yeah, you can use more plaster because it forces you to straighten things out because it's so big, and that's exactly what we're going to do here. And sometimes you expect it to go with the joists and stuff, but if this ceiling is going to be anything like the other ceiling next door, then I'm, you know, going to be pulling this around all over the place. I remember, I'm looking at it now, actually there's a big bulge on this, what I can only assume used to be an old fireplace, and it's a little chimney there. So yeah, it's just one of those, isn't it? We'll get this scrim up, we'll get this PVA, we'll let the PVA pick up, and then we'll knock up some plaster. What is quite tricky about doing something like this, where it's so undulated and out of shape and also over a textured surface like this, it's really quite hard to judge the amount of plaster you need, because so much of the amount of plaster that you knock up is going to be eaten up by the depth, you know. So you know you're going to knock up bag. It's not going to go anywhere as near as far if you was going over fresh plasterboard. So yeah, you just got to, you know, just guess it basically. And in this case, to be honest with you, because it's such a small area and we need to go deep, you probably do all right just being overcautious and just guessing a little bit more possibly than what you might need, because if you've got any left over at this point, you can leave that in a bucket and you can mix that back into the second coat or third coat if we have to put a third coat on this. I'm not too sure if we are or not at the moment, but you can put knock that extra gear that was left over back up into the next coat, and that will give it the properties just to go off that little bit faster. Right, let's get that spider out of there. My PVA tub, you can see it's quite bare. Down here, this is from when I had grit in it. See, these are the bits of sand, whatever it is that makes up the grit. That's not going to hurt anything being stuck in there. PVA, right, let's get some of that in there. So there's our neat PVA, and you can see it's quite gloopy. Look, it's a little bit too thick. This is why we have to water it down. Round so it's nice and consistent. There we go, there's the consistency. Or so, something like that, and it's giving it time for that PVA to pick up a little bit, and at least go tacky, maybe a little bit touch dry in areas before we can actually get around and plaster over it. So it's done that. Let's knock up some plaster and put that on the ceiling. So there's our plaster, knocked up really quite stiff to take out and not sag so much over this textured finish. And obviously we're going to need thick areas and thin areas, so it's going to hold itself a lot better. I'm always using this 20x5 carbon steel trowel, which is predominantly straight. You can put on a regular amount of plaster with it, you don't have to fill the whole thing up, but because of the length of it, it tends to not let the plaster splurge out the front or the back, and I can flatten out as I go along. I find it ideal for undulated ceilings and surfaces such as this. lots of sporadic movements, as suspected, would be needed to try and get this on in half a flat condition straight from the outset. And we did it very slowly and deliberately so that we didn't get it all down the walls and stuff and splash it everywhere. But you know, we can only do the best you can with that sort of stuff. Okay, right, we're going to get back over this straight away, and I'm going to concentrate on getting things as flat as I can with that 20x5 carbon steel trowel. So I've been over it, and as you can see, like usual, and what I tend to show in all these plastering over Arctic ceiling videos, all this pimpling and bleed through from the pattern underneath. That's because we're on so thick, and the wet plaster is sagging under its own weight and kind of transferring that pattern, the texture, the reverse of it through into this coat. So this is why we need this coat to be left alone for it to firm up, and when we put the next coat over, that pattern isn't going to be bleeding through into the next coat of plaster. So best thing we can do, and sometimes it is the best thing to do, and that's nothing at all. Not even clean this clothing off around the edge yet. I'm going to let that pick up a little bit before I start taking my finger and my thumb to that and start cleaning that off. So yeah, a cup of tea time, I guess. Okay, you can see it's firmed up. Got nothing coming off onto my finger, but I can just push indentations into the plaster. So now it's probably a good time to get another coat over this. Okay, a little bit of fresh water into this bucket. Just enough so that we can start washing the sides of the bucket round, etc. And then we're going to keep this dirty water and knock up into that by adding the amount of water we need to get the second coat on the ceiling. The reason we only put a small amount in initially is so that we can get right into the edges here, and we can see the bottom by tilting the bucket, and we can brush that out and be all nice and clean. Otherwise you'll get residue building up in there and cause lumps in your plaster. Okay, the quantity is quite a bit less, and it's knocked up quite a bit thinner as well. So let's hope that gets a tight coat all the way across this. Well, I say tight, a regular coat. It's just a lot tighter than the one we put on initially, just to get over all that texture. Okay, so that's that second coat that's been put on. It hasn't been turned around on and flattened in yet. So as you can see, it's gone on in a lot neater condition, and that is because we took the time to flatten that first coat out as much as we did. Right, let's jump back up here and start sorting this one out. It's gone on much better. We've got quite a bit of coverage. The other ceiling we did in 3 coats, I'm kind of feeling we might be able to get away with just 2 coats on this one. Let's see how we get on. Okay, that's what we're looking like after the first flatten, and I dare say it's very warm and muggy in here. I'm going to get straight back on this with the wet brush, and I tend to brush the water on in an effort just to liven up that surface. It's not much different to sponge flatting, to be honest with you, just not quite as invasive. And then we can use that roughed up surface, take a little bit of residue off, and then push that back into the ceiling. And we are going to do that method, that technique, to the entirety of this ceiling right now, and then we'll come back, stand in this position where the light is coming through, and show up any discrepancies that are still remaining in this ceiling. Here we are again. I must say it's rather warm in here. Temperature's really up, but that's the condition we're at the moment, and I believe it's time to get the stainless steel Superflex trowel over it, which is really going to polish this surface right up. There we go. We're pretty much done. We've just about got away with it. Cleaning the holes out for the lights with the pointed trowel, and also coming across these edges here to clean up this coving. First of all, cutting it in this direction, and then getting the point of it and dragging it off this direction, because ideally what we need to do here is this creates a nice line and it gives this somewhere to go. So I've already gone over it once, but we don't want to dig in too hard. So we got the sponge afterwards, give that a sponge down, and there we go. Everything clean and tidy. second coat of paint on this one we did last week. Was it beginning of the week? Yeah, it was last week, wasn't it? Okay, so despite all this furniture in here that we've had to contend with, again, I forget what they call them. It's not a tool boy, is it? Something to do with drinking. I forget what they call them, and something to do with Greek mythology. That's called something. I can't quite remember it. A tantalist. I think it might be called a tantalist, where you keep your booze, and a piano. But yeah, we're not looking to, although mate's had to put some easy fill on where these old curtains used to be, where the pole used to be. He's had to easy fill that, but we're not looking to paint these walls in here. So considering what had to go on, like plastering the ceiling and priming it, like I say, with PVA, I thought was the best thing to use in here because it was easier to control than any of the others that you can get. So we haven't got any plaster down the walls at all, apart from a tiny bit down there when I was mixing up my plaster, but we've taken a sponge to that as well, and we'll give that another wipe tomorrow. So yeah, tomorrow we've got some stuff to do out there, and then we're done on this job for the time being. There's more stuff to do upstairs. Alright guys, thank you very much for watching that video. Although we didn't free coat that ceiling, I'm going to call this video free coat ceiling part 2. Because it's exactly the same job and exactly the same ceiling, literally, although it's another room, exactly the same conditions as one we did, which was just called "The Ceiling Needed 3 Coats," and that was literally 2 videos back down the playlist, somewhere like that. So if you want a more extensive description of what we had to do to those ceilings on the other one as well, please have a look on that. And yeah, I mean, there's loads of stuff on the playlist now. Alternatively as well, we've got the Facebook group Plaster Master Smurf 74. If you want to come over there and have a chat, ask any questions or anything like that, it's a better place I find than the YouTube platform and the comments on the actual video. So if you want, join in. And we've got quite a few people on there now. We're well over 500 people in the group, obviously plasterers and prospective plasterers, and yeah, there's quite a bit going on there now. I'm quite pleased with it. So yeah, again, thanks for watching, and we are back on that job tomorrow doing a little bit of board work, so we'll probably record that as well. So alright guys, take it easy, enjoy the weather. It's very nice at the moment here in the UK. I will see you on the next video. Take it easy.